as you guys know, I'm a huge, Kawhi Leonard fan. I support him, although Kawhi Leonard has been disappointing us tremendously. I thought that run that he had with the Toronto Raptors back in 2019 was absolutely spectacular. A lot of people agreed. That year, he led the playoffs in points, rebounds, and steals, which was absolutely incredible for basically a three. He put up, and he had the third highest most points scored in the playoffs since LeBron James and Michael Jordan. I mean, it was that special, right? It was that special. So when he joined the Clippers and they ultimately signed Paul George, a lot of us were pretty high on them, and I picked the Clippers to win in 2020, and I was talking a lot of trash. I thought that the Clippers were going to perform well, but since signing them, it's just been one big disappointment. In the 4 years, we've only had an opportunity to see Kawhi Leonard and Paul George healthy in the playoffs one time. And that one time, we saw them blow a 3-1 lead to the Denver Nuggets, who just won the championship, although it was a different team. That's the first thing. The next year, what happens, I believe, what is it? One of those years, Kawhi gets injured. He misses a year. Then Paul George is in and out of the lineup. And then this season, Paul George gets injured right before the season, right before the playoffs. He has some kind of freak injury. And then Kawhi Leonard gets injured in game one. And at the end of that, I walked away totally disappointed. And I was one of the people out there that said that I feel like the Clippers should consider blowing it up. That, I just can't go through another year of this, especially after all of the load management that the Clippers did, which was egregious, and it didn't work. It simply didn't work. What they thought would work did not work. I think the Clippers thought they were so smart that they were going to game the system, and it blew up in their faces. If you think of the games played last season, Kawhi Leonard played last year. Well, he only played two. He only played 2 games this playoffs, but Kawhi Leonard, if I'm not mistaken, played 52 games last year. 52 games. Paul George played 56 games. And then Paul George was not even available for the playoffs, and Kawhi Leonard only played 2 games. At the end of that, what are we supposed to be looking forward to for us to say, this is something for us to feel excited about? What exactly are we supposed to feel excited about with this team? The Clippers had everything or have everything in place to win a championship. It's just that these two guys, for whatever reason, cannot find a way to be healthy. And early this week, I was just kind of listening to some sports news, and I came across a podcast, an ESPN podcast called The Hoop Collective. And and these guys, Brian Windhorst, and these guys were talking about the Clippers because it was more centered on the Clippers. And during this particular show, Ohms kind of took us behind the scenes to kind of give us a feel of what the Clippers feel internally about their state of affairs with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. And according to his report, it seems like the Clippers is growing frustration within the organization towards Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. So what we want to do is want to play exactly what they had to say here, and then want to come back and continue on with the show. Take a listen to that.
So, you're with the Clippers a lot. I know you covered the Nuggets throughout the playoff run, but you know the Clippers as well as anybody. To me, the fascinating thing about the Clippers is that this summer, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, they've got 1 year left on their contracts, and then they've got a player option. So it technically can be 2 years. But in the modern era, when an all-star level player has a year guaranteed left on his contract, we typically see some sort of extension discussion. Last year, for example, it was LeBron. LeBron had 1 year left on his contract, and he did a 1+1 extension. He added 1 year plus one. Even a player in his upper 30s did it. There's a bunch of players this year who will be in extension discussions. Maybe we can talk about with Bobby at some point. But this is a fascinating decision because Kawhi has had another surgery that the Clippers announced last week. They called it a cleanup procedure. I don't know what that means. It means that he's coming off that injury. I guess he suffered in the playoffs. Paul George was unable to finish last season due to an injury, and so I question, is this a simple decision? Do they extend them? Do they not extend them? Do they negotiate not a full extension? So, give me your feel on the state of the Clippers right now.
I don't think it's a simple decision. I think I have not spoken to Steve Ballmer, but I clearly remember his face at the end of that loss in Phoenix. And I think it was just of this like frustration that why can't my stars be healthy? Why can't this team ever be healthy? And I think business wise, Steve Ballmer is probably wondering, like, I've spent all this money to make this a first class franchise, and I cannot get my stars basically to play. I think Paul George had Jerry West on his pod recently. And I think Jerry West said it right to Paul George's face, something like, it's absolutely unbelievable that we have two stars of this caliber and you guys cannot stay healthy. So I think that's definitely an echo from the entire the frustration of the franchise. I've tried asking Lawrence Frank this numerous times, like at the end of his season press conference, he was talking about improving the team. I said, well, how do you improve availability? That's the biggest thing about this team. You just don't have your two stars. So I asked Lawrence this the other night at the end of the draft last week. I said, you've got your two superstars and extensions coming up. What is your feeling about extending these guys, especially the length of the extensions, because the cap is going to be so restrictive for them? Like, I think the Clippers are at a massive crossroads here, and Bobby can certainly talk more in depth about this, but this team has to figure out, we want to stay competitive and win a championship now. Our window is closing. We are entering a new building in Inglewood in like not next season, but the season after that. And Steve Ballmer wants a competitive team going into that to sell tickets and keep that team relevant. But you don't want to be stuck with two superstars on massive contracts that can't stay healthy, who are certainly getting up there in age as well. And you certainly want to have young prospects going into that season when you go into the new building as well, young talent. So I feel like, they are trying to straddle this line and walk this fine line of how do we stay competitive to win a championship now and build around Kawhi and build around Paul, but also still have a team that's going to be competitive for a long time to come. And now we got to deal with this new CBA. So I think that's a tough decision. If you look at Steve Ballmer, what he did with Ty Lue probably this summer, like Ty Lue was looking for a new deal, certainly more money. And I think Steve Ballmer's like, look, you're still under contract. Look, we love you. We want to keep you, but you're still under contract. I think they're starting to think about, like, what is the best way to spend money smartly with this team and still try to win a championship and still be competitive for years to come.
So you heard what they had to say. At the end of the playoffs, Steve Ballmer stood up and looked at himself and said, what am I doing here? What are we doing? Steve Ballmer and these guys are about to open up a new arena, I believe, in a year from now. Do you know how much Steve Ballmer and these guys invested in that arena? They invested $2 billion. $2 billion in that new arena. From an investment standpoint, is it paying dividend? Well, some people say, yeah, it's appreciated. No, it's not. It's not paying off because it's not working. It's not working based on the expectations that the owner himself has, which is Steve Ballmer, and he's the one also cutting the checks. And as a matter of fact, back in, I believe it was 2019, 2020, after he just bought the team, he actually sat down. Who did he sit down with? I think he sat down with Business Insider or Forbes, one of those two, to basically talk about the business aspect of owning an NBA team and why winning championships is so vital for the bottom line of an NBA team. So what we want to do is want to play from an old show that we produced a number of years ago. We're going to play exactly what Steve Ballmer had to say about the financials surrounding NBA teams when they win championships, and then we're going to come back and continue on with the show. Take a listen to that.
Well, we want to compete for NBA championships. It's great to win 50-plus games a year. It's better to compete for an NBA championship. So we decided that we needed to retool. We're not rebooting. We're not going to the bottom. We have a very competitive team, but we have a team in which we have more options on how to get better and go compete for a championship. The salary cap is very complicated. It's a little like the tax code. In a sense, it's simple. You have a rate. But at the end of the day, it isn't that simple because there are all these little perturbations. So I like what we've done with our team. It's given us more flexibility. I'd like to win a championship next year, but I'm sure, really enthused by the idea of getting where we need to be over the next 2 or 3 years. And obviously it helps. It's to have that when you come out with a new arena. It helps Golden State make that arena. I mean, what you can charge for suites when you have a championship team. I mean, I'm not saying I'm doing it for the business purpose. On the other hand, a championship floats all boats economically. Not winning a champion. We've done all this analysis on what's good for ticket sales. A number 1 draft pick. I don't actually want to get that unless we're lucky. I don't want to be that bad to have a high probability, but a number 1 draft pick helps. An NBA championship has a halo effect that lasts tens of years, not 1 or 2. And I think that's good for morale. It's what we want, but parenthetically, it's good for business too.
So you heard what he had to say. So listen, obviously it's not paying off. Given the fact that Steve Ballmer is a very, very passionate person about sports, a passionate person in general, but extremely passionate about basketball, I'm sure he must be frustrated. I'm sure he must be looking at his medical staff like, what do you people do? What am I paying all you guys this money? What are y'all doing? Y'all keep telling me, okay, let's do this, let's do that, but nothing can work. Nothing is working. Do we need to reevaluate the medical staff? Because what they've been doing is not working. Load management for these guys is not working. It's not working. You've even had Paul George complaining on his own show about why he feels load management is actually making their bodies weaker. And these guys are getting older. Now, I want to give you guys some numbers here because we got to talk about the numbers. Here's what the Clippers are going to be paying Kawhi Leonard and Paul George this year. They're going to be paying them $45.6 million a piece. Between the two of them, they're going to be paying them $90 million. Between the two of them. Next year, do you know what they're going to be paying these guys? Roughly $100 million. Kawhi Leonard is slated to earn $48.8 million, and Paul George is slated to earn $48.8 million. So from a business standpoint, let's remove the emotions out of this. Does it make sense to go ahead with these two guys who have an injury history, who've only been available or healthy with each other for one time? Now, is it their fault? No. Is it their fault? Are they injuring themselves? No. But it doesn't change the reality. So to me, I don't see why the Clippers would then double down on both of them. I don't understand. You're just running a risk. You're running a serious risk if you extend these two gentlemen. And given all the things that Kawhi Leonard wanted and all of the and how the Clippers capitulated to all of his demands, it's really not paying off. And Steve Ballmer is a human being. It is his money. And he must feel a type of way. Anybody that tells you, oh, well, he's an ultra billionaire, so he don't care, they're an idiot. They are an idiot. They probably are somebody that spends other people's money that they don't earn. They're probably some type of trust fund baby. If you earn your own money and somebody didn't give you money and you actually earn your own money and you understand the value of things, I don't care if you have $200 million in your bank account. If somebody wants to sell you a $100 burger, but it doesn't make sense for you to pay a $100 burger, you're not going to pay for that $100. You'd be like, I can pay $20, $25. Why am I paying $100? It's not a matter of, oh, do I have the money? It's a matter of, does it make sense to me? That's the key. So when you listen to, boy, yeah, those other people that ain't making no money. They just pocket watching somebody giving them money, so they have no clue of what money is. When you work for your own money and you know the value of a dollar because you made it and you understand what things cost, you're not going to overpay just for the simple fact that you have the money, unless you're an idiot. Unless you're an idiot. So to me, I definitely think Steve Ballmer is thinking about it. And I definitely think that they need to make a decision about one of these guys, but I wouldn't bring both of them back. But that's just my thoughts. So what I want to know from you guys is, number one, do you think this thing is working out for the Clippers in terms of from a financial standpoint? And number two, if you were Clippers management, what would you do? Would you keep both of them, trade both of them, or trade only one of them? Whatever you guys think, leave your thoughts in the comment section. And thank you guys for sticking around for this show here. Catch you guys next week. Peace.